Hello everyone, myself Dr. Rakesh. Today we'll be talking about introduction to counseling and interpersonal communication. So without any further ado, we'll just start with the session. So today's learning objectives would be about what is counseling and what is not counseling, that people have myths and misconceptions about counseling. So we'll be dealing about that. And what are the salient features of a good counselor? That will be brushed up a bit. And what are the basics of communication, especially in the context of basics of communication, especially in the context of counseling, and what are the crux of an effective communication during a counseling. So these are the four main learning objectives for the today's session that we'll be handling. So what is counseling? So, counseling is basically a process to solve problems. When a client comes to a counselor who's considered to be trained in a particular way to solve a problem for some objective third person, is what is counseling is all about. So, it's a professional tool. When I say professional, it means you have certain ethical boundaries and liabilities as a professional to take care of this client in solving his problem. But also there are certain things that we will be talking about when it comes to what it means that professional boundary is all about, right? And the next is to make better self decisions. From the client's perspective, it means that a counselor is the one who has to take the role of a person who's willing or able to facilitate the process of able to solve the problem that is in hand as told by the client, so that the client himself makes certain decisions by himself rather than the counselor trying to impose something on the client to do so. So he facilitates the process of making better self decisions by the client himself. And it is focused, specific, and goal directed. That means that though the exploration of the client's problem can be in different domains in terms of understanding his personality, understanding his background, and understanding his situation in which he has come from, and all those things, everything will boil down to a process of what we are finding out is the last goal of finding to solve the problem. So there will be no other aim other than getting information from this client to get into the process of solving a problem and nothing else. So it's more of focused and specific to that objective of finding that near best solution for this person. And it's interactive and collaborative. It means that it's not that once the person has told you the problem, you just have to tell them what it is or what he or she has to do. It is more of an interactive session where you collaborate with the client and try to bring up a lot of discussions about even the solutions. What will happen, what not will happen if you try this solution, what could be the pros and cons. So you bring in the client who's already in a state of distress, trying to make the atmosphere a more comfortable place where he can actually let out his emotions, and at the same time be more liable to find out his own solutions in a more interactive and collaborative manner. So that's what is meant by interactive and collaborative rather than one-sided. And the next one is about, based on the needs of the client, what he wants to work on. So once the whole process is done, there will be certain, deficits that you find in this client because of which he had landed up in this problem. So whether he needs to work on that, whether he needs to, solve it directly or he wants to work around it. So you need to discuss with the client and come up with a plan. And he has to be more outcoming to change himself to come up to the solution that he wants. So that is what is counseling is all about. So now we will be talking about counseling, what is it, it is not. So what has been the myths that people as a layperson usually understands counseling till now. So usually there is advice and guidance is synonymously used for counseling as well, right? So uh, why it is different and how it is different from a professional tool of counseling. So, of course, even by advising and guiding, you're trying to solve the problem. But what happens is that not all problems can be solved. And when if some problem solution is not working out for this particular problem that the client has come to, and if you are a person who's trying to advise or give guidance, and if there is a the problem is not working, I mean the solution is not working, then that means who takes the responsibility? Is this the client or the counselor? So when it comes to advice or guidance, there is a blame game. So you, the person, or for example, if a friend tries to give guidance or advice to somebody, eventually it doesn't happen, and that person tries to say, because of you I took this decision, and now see, it didn't work out, and there's a blame game now. So when there is error, then it becomes a blame game, and there is a possibility of the clients or the friends saying the other friend that because of you I took the decision, so it's not working, so you are responsible for it. So hence there are certain professional boundaries where you you know try to solve the problem. At the same time, the onus is completely on the client, and he is just guided to take his own decision, so that there is no blame on the counselor at any point in time. That's why it's a professional tool, whereas advice and guidance is not a professional tool where you land up having blame games. There is no liability. You can still say, hey, I just told you as a friend, I just gave a suggestion. So if it doesn't work, I can be responsible. It might not work, it might work. So as a professional, you are liable, not liable to the outcome, whereas you're liable to the process. So it's so advice and guidance is not a professional tool, whereas counseling is. And yeah, make better decisions. As I told you, counseling is to make better self decisions, whereas when it comes to advice and guidance, it becomes more of influencing somebody to take a decisions. So if you see this example here, somebody says, if I were you, I would have chosen a simpler security question than what is the meaning of life, right? So when a person who's trying to find out, set a a security question for himself, this is the example here. So when he's trying to select a question, rather than putting his mind, there is somebody who's saying that if I were you, I would do this. So somebody is saying that the person who's actually trying to guide him is actually giving his own personal opinion to the problem in hand, rather than trying to make the client or the person to himself think and come to a better solution and better decision by self decision by himself. So that will happen in advice and guidance, whereas in counseling it's completely on the onus of the client, right? Okay. Yeah. So we told that it's focus, specific, and goal directed. But when it comes to, advice and guidance by a friend or a colleague, it becomes more of, sometimes it goes, out of track. Sometimes they start talking about other things, and they say that, so even last time when you did something, it's the same problem that you landed into. I think it's your own, it's the way that you actually try to be, it's your personality. So I think you need to change. So rather than trying to focus on the goal in hand and becoming non-directive, sometimes they go into other, things, and it becomes too diffuse. They don't stick to what the specific goal is. They may talk about personal issues. Of course, personal issues will and sensitive issues will be talked in counseling as well, but it is always direct to understand in a scientific manner to find out, come to a solution or a near best answer. But whereas advice and guidance can go haywire anywhere. And as I told you already, it's interactive and collaborative in counseling, whereas advice and guidance becomes a one-way process, where, as you see in the picture, that only one person talks, the one who guides and advises, where the other person just passively sits and, just listens to it and feels that, okay, maybe I should try this out and see. Yeah, that is also another way of actually solving problem, but it doesn't work. It doesn't work every time. So whereas counseling is more of a professional tool, is what I'm trying to say. And yeah, counseling is based on the needs of the client, as I told you before. But whereas advice and guidance is more of, if you see the picture, he clearly depicts that somebody is trying to put on his own thoughts to the other person, and the person who has to, and the client is actually not thinking on his own and trying to find an answer for himself, so that he himself takes the responsibility for his problem. So what counseling does? Counseling does try to help a person to find his own problems, and the client and the counselor is just a facilitator for this person to find his own solution for this problem that he has come. So there is no blame game. There is no one way communication. There's no telling or advising. There is no giving advice or directing somebody to do this or that, or it's not a casual conversation that you have, or it's not about saying that I did this wrong, so please forgive me, or it's an interrogation that why did you do this, why did you do that, how come you can do this, or it's not about praying and asking for a solution. So it is not all these things, right? What are the positive features of a counselor, right? So that'll be the next section. So what a good counselor should possess. So if you see, a good counselor should have a good interpersonal skills. That is what we'll be talking about in the next section. So what are the basics of communication? All those things will be dealt in later. And he should be aware of the sensitive cultural patterns of that particular client. So why this is very important is that when you are a counselor and you're on a professional sitting across the table, you will have an opportunity to approach or be approached by a lot of intercultural, especially in a country like India. There will be a lot of people from different cultural backgrounds and community, where in each and every household there are different rules and roles and boundaries and cultural values that will be possessed. It's very important that we objectively see that, and rather not try to say that we are all from the same cultural background and everybody has to follow the same culture. It's not like that. So you have to be sensitive enough to the change in the cultural values across families, communities, uh, and ethnicity and whatever it is. Yeah. And you should have the ability to inspire trust and optimism. So when you're as a counselor, you should have the confidence and the ability to non-verbally communicate to the client, saying that I'm here to facilitate this process in a very smooth manner. So you need to be confident, and there should not be any insecurity in yourself that if you fall anywhere down, then the client might feel uncomfortable or insecure to you know feel that hopeless that probably I will not get the answer. So you should have the ability to trust and inspire and be optimistic at all times. That will be done only when you have an objective feel, uh, uh, perception towards the whole problem, and not internalizing to yourself. And willingness to form an alliance. So when I say this, is more of, as I told you, it's a very interactive and collaborative thing. So you should always collaborate with the client and come up with decision, rather than you already having a template and coming and sitting in front of them saying you do this blah 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 and that. So that is not how it's going to work. So you need to sit and discuss with the client, and being non-judgmental at all times. Like, for each person, the problem that they come with seems to be overwhelming for them. Probably for you, or as a counselor, when you sit across the table, when you're relatively normal and all right, you might think that this problem might be small. Why is he getting too overwhelmed by this? This is an easier thing. Why is he? So all those judgments need to be kept aside and understood that for this particular person, this is problem or situation is overwhelming. Probably I need to understand better. That could be collateral situations which are causing even the smaller problem to be as difficult as he says. So you need to be more objective in understanding this whole situation before coming to any hypothesis, and being completely non-judgmental is what a good counselor should have. Yeah. And as I told you, confidence and attention to the progress, uh, not trying to deviate from the every each and every session needs a different attention altogether. You shouldn't deviate or get distracted from the goal in hand. uh, and you need to have the flexibility to adapt when a person comes from different sessions, probably session 1, session 2. If he comes, shouldn't go with a rigid mind that today I'm going to do this, today I'm going to do that. Be open to what mindset the client is coming, because he has gone, probably if you called him after a week, he has already gone through a lot of different inputs, emotional and social, sensory inputs over the last 1 week, and things would have changed by now. So you need to be flexible to adapt to currently what is happening. So be at the present and try to be more, flexible at all times, and always provide a space for. Definitely, you're going to expect intense emotions to be expressed. So give them the space. How you do it, we will discuss in the coming videos. And today we'll be focusing only on the basics. And with your way of communicating, there should be a trust and safety. That is a confidentiality that this is going to remain between us, kind of a thing. And the way you behave and the way you talk needs to motivate the client for change. That should come by experience, definitely, but we will be telling you during this whole course that how you can be that person. And of course, at any point in time, providing support in terms of being available during the working hours if there are any uh, scheduling or rescheduling that you need to do, uh, uh, can be done at any point in time. So all these things are obligations that you have outside your sessions that needs to be better planned as a professional counselor, lay counselor. Yeah. So, what are the features that is not expected as a counselor to be? So, as I told you, it's a collaborative and interactive and non-judgmental way of handling the problem. So, pushing or threatening the client, which usually should not and does not happen, but it happens when it becomes too personal, or when you take that this is an easy thing. Why is he getting too pissed off? So, taking it to the level where you feel this is not too much of a thing that I need to handle as a counselor. He can do it by himself. So telling him, pushing him to try doing too much without understanding what kind of background that he comes from could be, counterproductive. And offering your own opinion in your, if I would have been in your place, I would have done this, should be avoided. And judging, as I told you, non-judgmental is the way to go. And using words such as, I know how you feel, even before you actually understood what the problem is, could be, very, counterproductive again. So, and insisting your beliefs onto your, see, in this culture, these things is not accepted, and all those terms and comments could actually, hurt the client, because each individual has their own way of seeing life and their own way of approaching situations. So imparting your own cultural values and beliefs to this person is completely, sometimes becomes too counterproductive. You should think always from the client's perspective and from what kind of a cultural and ethical background he's coming from, and stick to what is their cultural values and beliefs is all about, and make discussions. So how do you do it? We will discuss in the coming videos. And yeah, this is, as I told you, not trying to minimize the client's problem at all. So never sidestep or say that, oh, this is small, tell me something big that you want to, should not be done at any point in time. So you should always stay away from these, right? To conclude, it's like becoming immersed in the client situation, sometimes becoming too emotional when there is too much difficult history that you're taking, and you become too much immersed, and you started emoting yourself, that being sad, or you started crying or something like that, could be too much difficult for you as well, and the client will start thinking that you are not confident, or ready enough to help this person. So you need to be very objective in your perspective when you're helping somebody. And when clients come up with strong emotions, when they try to emote, kindly let them the space to emote it. So blocking those emotions could lead to difficulty in establishing a proper alliance between the client and the counselor. So it's very important. Don't feel that every time this fellow is talking about trying to ventilate things, trying to express his emotions all the time, I need to start suggesting him something. So don't get restless. You have to understand that the whole process of ventilating itself in the beginning phases are very important, because they have to let go of the pressure. So once that is done, you need to have the skill to bring in this client back to a phase where they will have to, be effective enough in discussing about solutions later. So don't block strong emotions at any point in time. and do not interrupt in between when they are trying to talk. Try to so how to avoid interrupt, avoid and bring into a situation where you need to interrupt, and all those things will be discussed during the skills videos. So try not to interrupt when, especially when they are emoting very significant and strong emotions. And do not take responsibility for the problems that people pose. So you always have to give a perception to them, especially in the beginning itself, that you will just be a facilitator, and anything in the process, he or she has to take the responsibility as a client, and you will be only the facilitator, right? So now we have come to the first end of the first section, that is about what is counseling is all about, and what is not, and what are the myths, and what a good counselor should have as his features, and what he should avoid having, is what we discussed. Now coming on to the next section is about basics of interpersonal communications. So first I'll be talking about what is communication. So the definition first, it's a dynamic process. So it's not a, it's a two-way process where you have a person. So when you say communication, there is three important steps. The one is the sender, and there is a medium, and there is a receiver. So when I'm talking to you, I will be the sender who wants to convey a thought or a feeling to the receiver, that is yourselves, and I am trying to do it through a medium, that is through a language, right? So it's a dynamic process where you convey a message or a thought, and how it is received depends on the set of events and stimuli that the receiver is exposed to. So, for example, we will be talking about what are the barriers and what are the factors that are responsible for an effective communication, and so that then you will understand what this line is all about. And it also helps, how and what you say plays an important role in communication. So that is more important, especially in the context of counseling. How you actually, what kind of words you choose, and when do you choose it, where you place it, all plays a very subtle importance in the way how you can establish good outcomes, and uh, effective, effective as a counselor. So yeah, so we have various ways of communication. So we'll be the broader ways will be verbal and non-verbal as human beings, and we'll be focusing on oral and non-verbal communication. So we'll be not talking about written communications. We'll be talking about oral, that is speaking and listening, and non-verbal communications which are there. So this is what we'll be focusing throughout the module. So when it comes to communication, again, we will be breaking it down to verbal and non-verbal. When it comes to counseling per se, these are the two broad versions that you need to see, and of that there is a supportive and a non-supportive way or under each of the subsections of communication. So when I say supportive, as the name suggests, it is supportive to the client, and there are few non-supportives which you need to avoid when you're, but I need to be aware as well, so that you can avoid it during your sessions. So a few examples I will give. Verbal supportive communication um, could be asking effective questions and paraphrasing. These things will be spoken about in detail later. So asking effective questions is by being very dedicated, and I would say the word as more of being more aware of the situation of what they're trying, being listening actively and finding out what they are talking, and trying to be more eager and curious about the problem. That itself would be a very supportive verbal communication, where you ask, how did it happen, when did it happen, can you tell me more about it? All those effective questions will actually make the client feel that, okay, this fellow is actually uh, more wants to know about it. He's interested and curious about making me feel better, or making me come out of the situation. So that will make them feel more supportive, right? And non-verbal communication, we'll talk about it later. And paraphrasing is about um, saying the same thing what the client says in a different way, so that they feel understood. The examples will be dealt in the coming in the next video in detail. So more or less saying that when you say something that the client has already said, in the way that you have understood, is paraphrasing, and the same way that they have told, and using the same words would be more of reflecting their feelings. So, or if they're not able to uh, put it in words, put their emotions in words, then you trying to fill up those gaps with some words, all those things will make them feel that okay, he's listening to me actively and he's curious about all these things. So that will be more supportive for them. That itself would be therapeutic, and you don't have to suggest anything else. So with making a feeling that there is somebody to listen to a problem itself is therapeutic for most of the clients. Yeah. And the next one will be verbal non-supportive. So as I already told you, what a counselor should not possess, like scolding or threatening, criticizing or blaming, or rejecting their viewpoints, or rejecting their own suggestions. Maybe can I do this? Try doing this. So rejecting all those things uh, it can be non-supportive, right? And then premature interruptions, when you're trying to, it becomes more of an argument where you feel like, oh no, no, you wait, let me finish this, let me tell you. All those things could be certain premature interruptions in between. uh, and asking questions in the direct and embarrassing manner, like, do you think this is going to work? If they're trying to suggest something, asking that, do you think this is going to work? I don't think this is a great idea. So all those things needs to be kept aside. And labeling and diagnosing, saying that, I think you are uh, weak in this part. I think you have you know some problem in the situation. I think if you change yourself. So all those labeling and diagnosing deficits within directively might be counterproductive, right? And yeah, and encouraging dependence is more of, don't worry, I'll take care, we will, I'll handle this for you. So all those things, more or less taking responsibility, could lead to, you might feel that it's supportive, but it will actually lead to issues later. So do not encourage dependence on yourself. Yeah. And then non-verbal supportive communication will be about actively listening, like bending forward, nodding your head, and all those things could be, you know, attentive body postures, maintaining eye contact, and suitable conversational distance. All these things could mean a lot to the client, you know. Whereas the non-verbal non-supported would be like not looking somewhere away frequently and trying to look at your watch to see the time, how long it has passed, or moving away from the client, or trying to focus on your mobile phone, or looking bored or irritated, showing some gestures in your face, yawning, or looking at all those things could be, you know um, giving the client a feeling that this fellow is just not interested in what I talk, and what's the point in talking to him. So all these things needs to be avoided in communication, right? So now we'll just go into in what ways. Now we just saw what communication is all about. We told it's a dynamic process and it's a two-way process, and it always involves a sender and a receiver. And the sender is more, the way he uses is very important, so that the message what he wants to convey effectively reaches the receiver. So in counseling, as we already told, it's an interactive and collaborative session. So definitely it's a two-way process. So you will be a sender for some time, you might be a receiver as a counselor at the same time. So but the you cannot control how the patient or the client is going to talk to you. So you need to take the responsibility, and you need to be uh, skillful enough to handle any kind of communication that is going to come from that side. So you have to know what all ways of communications are there, and how you would be able to play around your skills, so that you will be able to handle any kind of communication that comes to you from the other side, right? So there are certain ways that people communicate, and a counselor is supposed to communicate. So why it is important? So a good interview or a communication skill actually strengthens your professional relationship with the client, right? There's a trust that is building up. If you have all these, good supportive verbal as well as non-verbal communication, it helps you evoke vital history and information, where the client will be more confident in even telling you the most sensitive and emotional part of it immediately. if you have a better communication skill, they will feel more comfortable talking to even the most sensitive private issues with you. So you'll be able to make a better hypothesis about the whole problem and the situation, so that you'll be able to guide them better. So that is very much important. And if you have better of these communication skills, you will be, the client will adhere to the sessions and your suggestions better, and they will feel that this will work, which will be the most um, important parameter in terms of what will lead to the effective outcomes. And as I told you, it improves the willingness to revisit as well. They will feel comfortable to come and talk to you again and take your suggestions or your viewpoints better. When I say that, doesn't mean that you have to tell what you personally feel and all those things. I'm not telling you to judge or give your own opinions. They'll be open for discussions. What I'm trying to say, right? So there are three major types in which people you need to understand that people will communicate. The first one is friendly or affiliative versus business-like and dominant. So as the name suggests, I'm not going to explain it. The other one is in a clinical setup where it's more of client-centered versus disease-centered. Uh, the last one would be directive versus sharing type. So the last one is the one which we will be talking in detail for a counselor. So when I say directive and sharing type, it means that, as I already gave some examples for directive, that, telling him directly, saying what he wants to do and saying that, I think you should not do this, you should do that. Whereas sharing is more of trying to make him do what you want or what you feel might work, is what is the way of putting it forth. So I'll give you some examples so that you will understand better. So directive is, for example, if somebody has come to you after a very big, I'll be putting it more of a doctor's point of view. I'll try to translate it to simpler terms. Say, for example, somebody, you would have definitely come up with these in your daily life. When you come visit a doctor, there's a lot of doctors who say that, this is a serious problem, you have come late, which is a directive way of saying that you have done a mistake, right? You should have come early. Whereas a sharing or a non-directive way of saying it is, you know why do you think this has happened right now? What made you consult at this point in time, and why haven't you consulted early? So when you put it in this way, there will be vital information that comes up. So this person would have known that he's been having this problem, but he would have not come because he was not aware of the problem at all, or he would have consulted at different places and he would have come at this point in time. So, or you would have felt he would have tried things by himself, and those would have not worked, so he would have come late. So all these things, if you put non-directively, there are a lot of vital information that comes up. And it also gives you another non-directive information here, that you are not taking any responsibility, or you're not emotionally charged uh, as a counselor also. It is up to the client. So if he comes late, it is his own problem. So you should have the skills. Even if somebody comes late with a complex presentation, it is your skill that you should believe in, so that you'll be helped better. So there could be a sense of insecurity also. If you feel that he has come late, oh, then it's a complex case, then I might not be able to help him easily. All these things is because when you become a bit insecure also. So in that, it can be thought in that way also, of a different perspective. So be always objective and try to put it in a very non-directive manner. Another example I would give, when you're trying to break the news and you have evaluated completely and saying that you're suffering from so and so this, from probably a mental illness, you're suffering from depression, you're suffering from anxiety. It's a directive way of telling it. Maybe you can put it in a different way. It's been some time that I've been having this problem. Definitely you have asked or thought about it. What could be the reasons and what would be the problem? So labeling is not the gist here. It's very easy to say that he has depression or anxiety by the way he's been having the problems. And as a doctor, maybe you will have certain checklists that you need to clear because before labeling, saying that he has a disorder. But definitely the client who has himself gone through this whole process of this illness will definitely know there's something wrong. It's just that he won't know the label of it. So he can definitely say that maybe I'm going through stress, and probably because of this so and so problem, and probably I need help in that, that's why I've come. So there could be a lot of so you are, if you see what I'm trying to do here with the non-directive way is actually, rather than me telling that you have this, the client himself says probably I have this and I have come for that. So that takes up a lot of responsibility, you as a doctor, and saying that, see, you also know what is happening. So what do you, the next thing is, what do you think you want to do to change? Have you tried anything? So that's the next question. And if you have tried something, has it worked? So you can, with these types of questions, you'll be able to, play around a lot of vital informations, and you know, give the whole responsibility and the onus of solving the problem to the client himself. Right. This is again in a very doctor setup. It says that it is essential to take tablets, whereas when it comes to psychiatry, we also have, not taking tablets and taking tablets, going to therapy. So putting in a different way, what have you tried to do to do help? What have you tried to do to help yourself till now? Would you like a prescription for yourself? I recommend that in your case, I think it would help. So in this way, it's more of a sharing way of, bringing in the client. So making it a more of a collaborative and interactive way, rather than saying that, see, you have this problem. I think it is better that you take this tablet. This is a serious problem. Rather than being it in a directive way and saying, you do this, come after 2 weeks and see me. This is more of a directive and non-interactive way of telling it. Whereas if you see the sharing ways, it's more of a collaborative way. The client will actually feel involved in the treatment plan. So he will take the decision. It's after all his own problem and his own life that he has come for. So this is the way of how you share, use your sharing way of communication. The last example is, come and see me after so and so times, what you would say. But whereas when would you like to see me again? Would you? So it again puts the goal and the ball on the court of the client. So if he feels that he'll be able to manage it, you will say that maybe the next session will be, I can come after 2 weeks, doctor. Or if he says, doctor, I'm not sure, what do you recommend? Then you can say, I would recommend that probably you can come and see me after 2 weeks. That would be better, is what feel. And again, it's more of a collaborative way of, coming to a consensual way of coming to an understanding or a decision of what he wants, basically. So that's the way how. So if you see the way that we use these questions, it's more of trying to be more, making him to make more self decisions, even in the small decisions within the consultation, and trying to take responsibility for himself, being more interactive and collaborative, right? And being more focused on the problem that is in hand, and not going out of anything, and being more professional in the way of asking questions as well, and not being very patriarchal, or in a way of being directive and saying that this is what you have to do, right? So this is how the whole module will be focused with, understanding how to ask questions when and how to ask questions. Is how it's going to be very crucial learning experience for every one of you. Right. Now, we were just brushing through what could be the barriers for effective communication, as from a communicator's point of view. First thing is unwillingness to say things differently, right? We all have a pattern on how we talk. We have already have a set of vocabulary that we have, and we try to keep thinking about what we want to say. So that will lead to issues. Always try to take the words from the client himself or herself. They will give you the words that they want to hear. Few of them might not know what you're saying. Few of them might not understand the word what you're saying. They have not heard about it. So be very flexible and take all the words from their own mouth and try to put it back so that they understand better. So try to do things differently. Unwillingness to relate to others differently, as I told you, like being very rigid about your own beliefs and values. So only if you have an objective way of looking into it, we'll be talking about what sympathy and empathy is all about. So empathizing with the client is very important, and that's when you will be able to relate to them differently, right, in their own way, and not in your own way, which will lead to a lot of judgments and hesitations to break your own way of handling things, and unwillingness to learn new approaches. So when I say new approaches, it doesn't mean that you already uh, you have to learn you have to go with the client. So there's no one way of looking this whole process. If the client says, I want to uh, have this problem and this is how it is happening, gives a lot of different situations altogether, and you cannot have one solution for all. There will be it has to be tailor made for everyone. That's what it means. So you need to be flexible with the client to discuss opportunity, different solutions, and try to work it out and brainstorm the pros and cons of different solutions and come up with uh, the best answer possible. And lack of self confidence, as I already told you, you need to give that enthusiasm and self confidence. That vibe should be there to the client, and only then he will be confident in telling you his problem completely, along with all those sensitive information. And you know that's when it comes up. So if you feel very restless and insecure by yourself, no, the process is not going to be that comfortable for either of you. And lack of self-awareness, knowing what you're doing right and wrong is very important at every point in time of the session. So trying to go back and see what you have done, see what you have spoken is very important, so that you rectify it to the in the communication pattern during your next session. So being aware of what you should have told differently, all those things will help you learn in the coming sessions also. And from the receiver's point of view, yeah, so when you try to put forth something, they might feel that they might have different values and and cultural morals and all those stuff, so they might not take it rightly. So you need to be sensitive enough to pick all those things and rectify it, because they are not going to rectify it for themselves. So you need to be open enough to ask, did this bother you in any way? Have I told you anything different? So being very open is very important, and not getting judgmental even in this. Okay, I said something, as he also has judged me in some way, probably I should not touch upon it again. So you need to be very confident enough to ask the client, saying that when I said this, I felt that you felt a bit uncomfortable. Can you tell me what made you uncomfortable? So being more open also is very important. So a few of them from the receiving end might feel that this person is talking like this, yeah, I'm not happy with this. So be very open when you feel that you have not understood the cultural values and you have overstepped. Then be open to you know rectify it with the client. And a few barriers, like the you need to be aware of the education and prior knowledge over the subject of the client when you're talking about something. So say for example, when we as doctors, when we have clients who have come from other backgrounds like engineering and other things, they will be talking about their own uh, engineering stuff, so which we won't be able to understand. So it is very important to just a minute, there's some problem. Mm, apologies, just a minute. Yeah. So being open to ask them about what it is all about, can you elaborate more on that particular term that you used, is very important as well. And if they have any misconceptions, that you feel that they have any misconceptions or prejudice of the subject, clarifying all those things is very important, right? And also you should have an willingness to understand, to accept other people's perspective also. As I told you, they might come up with their own viewpoints and opinions, and being open about it and talking and finding out why they actually feel that way and why they feel their perspective is important is very important, because you need to know that we are not trying to impart something, what we know or our beliefs to this person. We are not trying to preach something. So it's very important to accept their perspective and find out why they want to solve this problem in this way and see whether it works out or not, right? Yeah. And what could be the external barriers will be about, the venue, the ambience of the consultation room, noise level at the venue, the temperature, and the time. So you need to make sure that everything is optimal. So noise level, you make sure that you have closed the door, or just kept it a bit open, so that there is not much, and making sure that there is no problem outside, or in the waiting area, or in the reception area. And you know you have a fixed time for each session, that probably 30 minutes, or to 60 minutes, and you don't overshoot it, because anyway the attention span is not going to be that good after an hour or so, right? And a few things that you need to know: always think ahead about what you're going to say. Is something that you need to that you will know how to do it when we're going to talk about the skills in counseling in the next video. So as and when the client is talking, you need to be more active in listening and interpret what they're trying to say. So you try to do that. As I told you already, use simple words and phrases that will be understood by most of them, or pick the phrases from themselves, and increase on the knowledge on the subject that you're required to speak. Or when I say required to speak, it's more of, say for example, as I told you, if you have to talk, do some homework for the client. Say for example, if they have spoken about some particular issue in a different field altogether, and if you're not aware of it, doing research on that, or asking them to say more about it and taking information from them, will actually help make the client feel very comfortable, and that this fellow is really dedicated to his work, and they will feel more confident, and that itself will fasten the process of recovery, right? Speak clearly and audibly, and check if you feel that the person has not taken your point well or rightly. Make sure that whether they've understood accurately or not, by trying to ask them to, if you I'm not sure whether you've understood, can you uh, tell me what you have understood, so that we are on the same page. So requesting them to tell whether they have understood or not, checking them twice: have you understood it? Okay, can I know what you have understood? So in a very respectful manner, asking him is very important. And in case of any interruption that has happened, unfortunately, if some suddenly, if some phone call had come, or anything of that sort has happened, or somebody has barged in to the consultation room, always do a little recap on what is already discussed, or a summary of it, and then get back to the situation. Make sure you pay undivided attention. All these things will come again in skill development. So if you feel, few clients might not be happy you taking notes, but if they are okay after asking consent, just asking them in the beginning only, if you're okay with it, I might take up few important points or themes on what we have discussed, so that I can go back and work on that, and then discuss with my supervisors if anything that I have to say. If they are okay with it, you can go ahead and do that, which will be a good exercise for you to make few learning points as well. And when you have not grasped some of the points, it's very important to, sorry, I didn't get that kind of a word questions, is very important to ask, and make sure you have gotten what they have said. And again, as I told you, repeat what you have said, so that if you have any doubts, and just clarify with them whether you have got it right or not, right? So these are the do's in communication, and don'ts would be more about uh, do not instantly react or mutter something in anger. You try to, not in anger also, not try to react in any way. Like this is more or less similar to not interrupting, or not uh, do not interrupt, kind of a thing. So wait for them to finish, and do not be aware of your facial expressions. All these things will happen if you're will not happen if you're curious and dedicated to the and if you know the principles of better counselor. All those things will subconsciously will not happen at all. Do not use few technical terms and terminologies which might not be understood by them, right? So use very simpler terms. Do not speak too fast or too slow also. And okay, when the surroundings are a bit noisy, do not speak in an inaudible surrounding also, and try to be as clear and audible as possible. And as sometimes, so all these things are just the paraphrasing of the do's. Do not assume that everybody understands you. Sometimes either verbally they have not understood you, or non-verbally they have not understood you. If you feel that there is any miscommunication, be open enough to ask, and make sure that both of you are on the same page. Otherwise, there is going to be confusion and insecurity that will be taken out from the session, and the client might feel that, okay, this is not working out, maybe I need to find out somebody else, or maybe they might feel that even therapy itself might not work, and they might stop seeking help completely. And as I told you, this is already discussed. Do not glance here and there. It might distract the speaker, so be actively listening to them. Do not interrupt the speaker, let him finish, and do not jump to a conclusion that you've understood everything. That's very commonly that happens. Like, okay, yeah, you've told this already. I think we have discussed this already. Uh, Without even him coming to the point, if you feel that this is something that is already told and you're trying to cut it out, it might be something different altogether. So make sure that, maybe if, instead of telling, yeah, I know this already, I've told this already, maybe you can say that situation is this one, this so and so thing that you told last time, is it going to be a repetition, or going to say the same thing or something different? So then they might say that, no, this is something different. If they're saying that it's the same, then you might say that, yeah, I think I've understood. Is there anything new that you're going to add to this? All these things, a few things that, do not brush it under the carpet. There could be newer things coming up on the same lines, or there can be newer emotions that have been added to the already existing story. So do not cut it out prematurely, is what is said. So yeah, that's about it. That's about the basics of interpersonal communication, and we have already spoken about what counseling is and counseling is not. So to summarize the whole session today, it's counseling is a professional tool, and it's different from advice and guidance. It's a collaborative process, and the process is to reach to a near best solution, right? The onus of the solution for the problem in hand lies on the client, right? And the counselor is just a facilitator. Communication during counseling is not as similar to a casual conversation, and hence you need to have insights into what and how you say, and when and in what way you say it. Right, this is what we discussed. Right, so you need to know the do's and don'ts and what are the essentials during communication. I'm sure that most of you would have already known about effective ways of communications. It could have just been a brush up, but as a part of this module, it is very important to emphasize it again. So we wanted it to do it in the beginning of the module itself. So that is why this thing is all about, right? So thank you for your wonderful listening. We'll come up with different videos in the coming days for your as a part of this module. Thank you.